The tax budget hearing. I'm calling this hearing open for public comment on the 2026 tax budget. Seeing as we've got a big public crowd to ask questions about the tax budget, I'm gonna go ahead and make just a couple of comments. The board will approve this during the organizational meeting, but annually it is required, and every county, by law, every school district should be submitting a tax budget to their tax budget commission, which can consist of the county treasurer, auditor, and prosecuting attorney. Every county does it a little bit differently. The format, as well as whether or not they take a hard look at it. But essentially, what the tax budget is our submission to the county saying you need to collect all the taxes. We have to show that we have a need for that collection, and that's what the tax budget commission takes this tax budget and then will assess all the taxes for calendar year 25, right? Because 24, our taxes paid this year are on 24, right? Because they're always a year behind. So what you have in the tax budget here in this first sheet is the general fund, and the general fund is the one that's broke down the most detail because that's obviously where the bulk of our local tax collection is. It shows last year, in the previous fiscal year, which is for us year 24, the current fiscal year, which is last year, is 25, and then the next two are next fiscal year. So it's fiscal year 24, fiscal year 25, and then projected 25, fiscal year 26. So the first page is just a general fund. And Tom, if you want to go ahead and scroll to the second page. Then we get into the bond retirement fund. And this is important, even though, again, the tax commission can lower the collection rates on any of these millages if they deem that we don't need the money. Now, bonds, it's a little bit different calculation because we can show exactly what our payments are due, and they collect enough to make that payment plus a little bit of cushion. So if you go ahead and scroll, Tom, the PI levy, we have two PI levies. The one that's voted millage, again, we'll talk about that later tonight, but this again, it says, hey, we've got use for that money, please collect it, and go ahead and scroll. The half mil for tech. So all those, again, we're just showing our need and our projections on the revenue. Normally at this time, then they'd also have for us the anticipated tax rates, but they're not done yet. We'll get them at the regular meeting. So any comments on the tax budget? And the tax budget is kind of a bureaucratic device, but I use the same numbers in the tax budget that are in the forecast. So they tie together. Any other comments? Okay, I'm going to call this hearing to a close. So the tax budget hearing is now closed.
Short and sweet.
Thanks.
I've never seen anyone show up to a tax budget hearing. And actually, some counties are.
Yeah, I wouldn't take it personal.
No.
There's no complaint about it, though.
It's kind of it's become very important because, like, we have at least in one county, that tax budget has been cutting school funding on their own, saying you don't need the money, we're cutting the millage. And of course, there's some question whether they can legally do that or not. But they see it as their mandate, and I can honestly say it's not. It's been a one-off. It's no longer be a one-off. Particularly with the state of where the state is right now. That's the appetite is to cut off public funding when they can.
Yeah, the following years count too. Oh, that's really hot. Are we moving into the next meeting?
No, we scheduled that at
6.
We didn't do a immediately after the tax hearing meeting.
They're saying they're staring at each
We
other.
should, we should label it, but we actually cleared it.
And if you notice, the special meeting is immediately following
Mm-hmm.
organization.
So that will be what we're
Yeah.
Cool your heels for 7 minutes.
Okay.
So, how are your kitties in the contest faring in the cold weather?
Good. The one comes in quite a bit.
So that's the
Not the
smart
one
one?
that attacked you.
No,
Okay.
no, that, I don't know what that one was about. It's not one of mine, so he was a stranger.
So funny.
Yeah, the one, he's in quite a bit. He hasn't spent the night inside yet, but, and the
getting
other
there.
one is a little more timid, so. Yeah.
Because didn't I send you, I think it was from, not Neiman Marcus,
All right, good evening, everybody. I'm going to call to order the Perrysburg Educational Organizational Meeting on this January 6, 2025. If we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Ms. Roland Miller,
Here.
Ms. Larimer,
Here.
Ms. Minke,
Here.
Dr. Reffert,
Here.
Mr. Bennington.
Here. Our safety briefing, Perrysburg Schools welcomes you to the Commodore Building, and we thank you for attending tonight's Board of Education meeting. We care about the safety of our students, staff, families, and guests. Please note that there are exits on both the east and west sides of the cafeteria. In case of an emergency, an AED is located just outside the cafeteria doors. You are located at 140 East Indiana Avenue. Thank you for joining us tonight and supporting Perrysburg Schools. So the first item on our organizational meeting agenda is an election of the new board president. Mr. Drury, if you would kind of walk us through the process.
Yes, I have it written there, but just to make sure it's clear, President Pro Tem will ask for nominations. No seconds are necessary. When all the nominations are presented, then the President Pro Tem will ask for a motion and a second to close nominations. We'll vote on the closure, and then we'll do a roll call vote on the presidential election. If we have more than one nominee, the vote is for not yes or no for that particular person. And so we need 3 votes, obviously, to seat the president.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. And is the President Pro Tem allowed to open the nominations by making a nomination?
Yes, certainly.
Okay, then I'm going to open the nominations by nominating Ms. Susan Rowland Miller. Are there any other nominations? Take a motion to close the nominations.
So moved.
Ms. Larimer?
Second.
Dr. Ruffert? Roll call, please.
Ms. Larimer,
Yes.
Dr. Reffert,
Yes.
Ms. Minke,
Yes.
Ms. Roland Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes, congratulations, Ms. Rowland Miller.
Oh, we need to vote on the president. That was
We
to
need to
close
vote. We have a,
nominations.
see, you explained it. 4th year in a row, I screwed it up.
A little excited to
I
be
got-
done with that.
I got closer that time. I got
I-
closer.
That's why I was trying to spare us the,
Yeah, you tried.
I tried.
You tried.
It was a
It's
valiant
easy.
effort, Randy.
Thank you, Randy.
Right, okay, now, so we need roll call for, this is the elect the president.
Yes, we have closed the nominations.
Okay. Mr. Bennington,
Yes.
Ms. Larimer,
Yes.
Ms. Minke,
Yes.
Dr. Reffert,
Yes.
Ms. Roland Miller.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, congratulations, Susan.
Congratulations, yeah.
I thought we were going to discuss who was going to moderate.
I think you're ready to go.
You're like, peace.
We'll move then to the election of a new board vice president. And I assume the process is the same, and
Hopefully you get it
we'll
right.
see if we get it right. So I open the floor for nominations.
Nominate Eric Bennington, please.
Okay, we have a nomination for Mr. Bennington. Any other nominations? A vote to close the nominations.
So moved.
Second? I forgot I can second stuff
You can
now, but give it to.
You gotta get back in the loop here.
Yeah.
So this vote is to close nominations. Very clear. Dr. Reffert,
Yes.
Mr. Bennington,
Yes.
Ms. Larimer,
Yes.
Ms. Minke,
Yes.
Ms. Roland Miller.
Yes.
Now the vote to elect the vice president. Dr. Reffert,
Yes.
Ms. Minke,
Yes.
Ms. Larimer,
Yes.
Ms. Roland Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes.
Congratulations, Mr.
Thank you.
All right.
I want to thank Mr. Bennington for his leadership the last 3 years, certainly through some challenging times. I've really appreciated your leadership, your guidance, your wisdom, and I'm going to preemptively thank you for all of the hours that you will spend sharing such things with me over the coming months.
That sounds ominous. Thank you. It's been an honor to serve and with the people at this table right here. So, thank you.
All right, we move on to adopt the proposed agenda. I know that there may be some changes to specific items, which we can either pull from consents or discuss at the time. Are there any other changes, though, to the agenda specifically? So a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Roll call, please, sorry. Okay.
Mr. Bennington,
Yes.
Ms. Larimer,
Yes.
Ms. Minke,
Yes.
Dr. Reffert,
Yes.
Ms. Roland Miller.
Yes. Okay, we have the agenda. Our first item, 5.1, is the regular board meeting schedule, time, dates. So if we, I'd like to ask for this to be made as a motion to adopt this, and then if there's any amendments to the motion, we can consider those.
So moved.
Second?
Roll call for putting this motion, oh, sorry. Okay, so we have a motion. Are there any amendments or changes or discussion around this motion?
I would like to make an amendment. I propose that we make board meetings for 6 p.m. Same reason as last year, so we can allow the public to be here in time, and also for those of us who work and do not get out in time to make a 5:30 meeting. I would appreciate a 6 o'clock meeting, so I'm not late and not rushing to get here.
We have a motion. Is there a second
With the amendment, for the amendment.
for the amendment? I have a motion to amend.
We have to have a second in order to discuss it, right?
Correct.
So I'll second to discuss.
Okay.
So Ms. Minke had made the motion then?
Yep.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second. So discussion to move the meeting from 5:30 to 6.
Is there another day of the week that you could be here at 5:30? Because I noticed at some meetings you're able to be here earlier than 6. So is it a day of the week problem, or is it only a time problem?
It's a time problem. It's not specifically a day of the week.
Okay. And the reason why we do 5:30 is to accommodate students and student recognitions, right, Tom?
The board meeting times have changed over the years, so.
Mr. Hostler, are you on?
Sorry. So the board meeting times have changed over the years. So initially, it was, I believe, at 7 p.m. when I first started on the board, or working with the board. And what the board over time said, you know, on Monday nights, there's other activities that are going on. It's a late night. They thought that having it at that time was not allowing people to get home. You know, they thought people would be more likely to come at an earlier time after work, and because once people get home, it's hard to get back out for a board meeting. So then they moved it from 7 to 5:30. And that also helps with recognitions and things, you know, kind of on the way home from work. So there hasn't been a set, I mean, it's been at 5:30 for a number of years now, but it hasn't always been at 5:30. The work sessions have also, that start time has changed over the years as well, so.
So I think it's been 5:30 since I've been on the board.
It's been a long time, yes, yeah. And they weren't getting many people to participate at the board meetings before at 7, so they changed it to 5:30, hoping that it'd be more convenient for people to stop in on the way home from work, kind of a thing. So I don't know if that's really changed, but now with YouTube, people who want to watch have that ability. You can't participate, but you can certainly observe.
Well, that was kind of my thought about it, was that for people who want to participate or want to see it, what I'm hearing is that they're just going to YouTube anyway, so it's one less thing that they have to attend. Thank you for being here, but that being said, but I'm concerned about the students. It seems to be a good time for them, and if I'm not mistaken, it was Gretchen who really got the ball really rolling on the recognitions. And so we've been doing that for many, many years, and I think that that's important for us to see the work that our staff and our students are doing, that we're trying to encourage and direct. So does a half hour make a difference in a student's life? Yes, it does a lot. I'm not really, me personally, it doesn't make a hill beans a difference. I have to find somebody to watch tests either way, so it doesn't matter. But I am thinking about the students on that one, and I love having the student participation.
Other discussion?
I mean, in the spirit of compromise, does 5:40, I mean, we're talking 15 minutes, does 5:45 take some of that?
It would help me.
It would help
from coming from my
5:45
job,
would?
yes. And I think it would also help the parents who get the students here. Not everybody gets off at 5, not everybody gets off at 4:30. Whoops.
Ninja, way to go, dude.
Keep going.
For the parents who want to be here for their students, I believe that 6 o'clock would be better for them. And really with the students coming from practice, I think it would be easier for them also to be here at 6 o'clock. And the coaches aren't having to run practices short because they have members of their team that need to be here for something else, whether it's for an academic recognition or if they have students that were on a previous season team.
I think that would be a good compromise. We could do that, 5:40. Well, we'd have to change the motion. We'd have
We
to
could do a
deny.
friendly amendment to the motion if Ms. Menke was interested in changing it to 5:45. If she wants a vote on 6, then we can continue to vote, or we can, you have to
could-
vote on this amendment, and then you could make another amendment.
I believe I could do 5:45, but keep in mind, this gentleman probably knew that there was a tax meeting at 5:45, yet he walked in here at 5:15. I'm guessing it's probably because he was at work. So I think giving parents especially a little leeway so they're not rushing to get their children here would be a good service for us to do.
So do you want us to vote on the 6 o'clock, or are you willing to amend your motion to 5:45?
How about we vote on both of them?
Okay.
We do a 5:45 and a 6 o'clock and see how it goes.
Okay, well,
Okay,
the
it sounds
motion
like
on the
there's-
floor is 6.
Yeah, the motion on the floor is
So we
6,
have to
so-
do that one first.
Call to the question on the 6 o'clock.
All right, call the question for 6. Mr. Drewer?
Mr. Bennington,
Yes.
Ms. Larimer,
No. I'm going to say no.
Ms. Minke,
Yes.
Dr. Reffert,
No.
Ms. Roland Miller.
I'm going to say no. I like the idea of the compromise.
So that I move for 5:45?
You make an amendment for 5:45.
Make an amendment for 5:45?
Second, Ms. Larimer?
Who had the second?
Ms.
Mrs.
Larimer.
Larimer.
Discussion on 5:45.
Make it 5:45, 5:46.
Call for the question then, Mr. Drewer?
Mr. Bennington,
Yes.
Ms. Larimer,
Yes.
Ms. Minke,
Yes.
Dr. Reffert,
Yes.
Ms. Roland Miller.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we're back to our original motion 5.1 with the change of regular meetings at 5:45 on the third Monday of each month, and you see the dates there. Any other amendments or changes?
Give it a second.
Okay,
We're just doing 5.1?
just doing 5.1 right now. So call for the question, Mr. Drewer.
Ms. Larimer,
Oh, okay. So now it's the dates and the time. Yes. Sorry.
Mr. Bennington,
Yes.
Ms. Minke,
Yes.
Dr. Reffert,
Yes.
Ms. Roland Miller.
Yes. All right, We have board meetings. The next 5 items are grouped together, but I think we really need to look at each one individually because I think there may be some changes. And we have to fill in some blanks as well. So 5.2 is the board retreat. I think everyone had been notified of this previously, so hopefully that continues to work with everyone's schedule. 5.3 are the work sessions. I just want to highlight that we have scheduled, unusually, I know that this isn't our normal practice, but we have scheduled July and December work sessions with the idea that if they're not needed, they can be canceled rather than trying to add them into the schedule later. So if we can put all of those work sessions, if this passes on our calendars, that would be really helpful. The July one, I'll note, is the second Wednesday of the month and not the first Wednesday of the month in order to stay away from the holiday. So that is there.
And just on a point of open sunshine laws, if we end up having the work session on July 9th and we have other business that we need to do that day, there will need to be a new notification, right? Because the work session, we got to make sure we have on there what's happening. And if we got other business, I just want to be careful about that. That we add that in there. So it's just a watch out if we get to that point.
Okay.
Oh, so this is different than what you originally sent out, isn't it? Okay.
Yeah, that's, I think, mainly the July and December dates being added. The standing committees and other non-board appointed committees. So you'll see that we have, well, let me back up. There was a meeting, as you were informed, that Mr. Bennington and myself attended via Zoom with Mr. Hostler, Mr. Drewer, and Ms. Price, where we met with Cheryl Ryan from OSBA to talk about committees, how are other boards doing committees. And this is kind of where those conversations landed. We wanted to really align our committees and the language of our committees around the board's main responsibilities and our goals for the coming year and our strategic plan. And you'll see that we no longer have what really is communications, because that really is a more operational piece. But as we've talked about, community engagement has become a really important part of the board's responsibilities that we want to focus on. And so that has shifted both kind of content as well as people. The Finance Committee, of course, continues, and the Teaching and Learning Committee has really been split, I don't want to say, but we've renamed that as Student Achievement, as that is the main focus. One of the things that you'll notice that policy is not a standing committee anymore. We see that as an ad hoc committee opportunity for when policy changes need to be considered, that those will be scheduled, and we'll ask, I'll appoint people at that time with your approval. Curriculum review, which would have been part of teaching and learning, that would become an ad hoc committee too, that's kind of pulled out of that. And then other ad hoc committees as our business requires. We do have, you'll see the schedule there. And then we have assignments. Several of the assignments we will address, or we have addressed already in other motions, but we will be addressing the OSBA delegate, legislative liaison, and student achievement liaisons in the next couple. You'll see that Dr. Reffert would be with the Perrysburg Schools Foundation, and then by policy, as president, I would be on records. What we have not included anymore are those committees appointed by the superintendent, as those are not board approved, and we want to make sure that that's a clear designation that our responsibilities aren't in the operational side and that there are these main areas that we're responsible for. I think to the person on the outside who was counting up on their fingers board responsibilities, when Mr. Bennington and I talked about assignments for this coming year, we looked at total assignments across superintendent, appointed committees with the assignments for OSBA, the foundation, and the records committee, as well as the board standing committees. So everyone has 3 or 4 assignments for the coming year, so that's pretty equal. It just may not look that way on paper right now. I think that that's kind of the high-level piece of that. I'm going to keep running through these, and then we'll go back for those that we need. You'll see that the OSBA legislative liaison, that we are suggesting Ms. Larimer again for that role, which is, I had no idea how many committees she is on. It's a very large role, and I think as we continue to move in our funding issues, that this is a really central role for our board. And so I'm grateful for Ms. Larimer's willingness to serve in that way. We will need a alternate for that position. OSBA Student Achievement Liaison, Mr. Bennington has agreed to do that again and is being a board representative on the Student Achievement Committee. That makes a lot of sense. I'm going to suggest that as the other member of that committee that I probably be the alternate. And then so we're looking at 5.2 through 5.6. Are there any discussion or changes to any of those 5 items?
I'm going to suggest, or I'm going to propose that we pull operations out of a superintendent-appointed committee, and we put it in a regular board committee. And my reasoning behind this is because of the things that we are doing in there. They're not necessarily specifically labeled to a student or a staff member in terms of what we're talking about. I think it's good for the community to see operations, how we are, I would say, smartly spending our money and our savings, and I think it needs to be an open public chance for people to come to a meeting and see what we're doing, especially with the levies that we have coming up.
One of the things that we had talked about when we were specifically to that committee was the mechanism to be able to continue to pull the communications, the work that committee and those folks are doing. And I think there is opportunity in the regular board meetings to continue to do what we've been doing and share all of that great work and all those savings that are occurring. To my recollection, and I haven't served on that committee throughout my entire tenure here, but I don't recall any public participation that has ever occurred at that meeting. I don't know that that's necessarily what drives a decision, but I agree with you. I think it is critically important that those that are going to serve on that committee continue to bring out and talk about the work that is being done in there, because it is good. It is great work that's being done. But I also think moving it to a superintendent's committee also kind of gives it some logistical flexibility as far as noticing and you know, the type of things that can be talked about in that meeting, like security, building security, things like that, cyber security, some of the other topics that do get covered in that meeting.
I think is that an amendment then to the item that you want to make?
Yes, I'd like to see that as an amendment.
Right, so you'd like an amendment to move operations from an administrative superintendent appointed committee to a board standing committee. Is there a second? Hearing none, I would say that we'll move on. I will comment that one of my main concerns as we talked about committees was I think operations is an incredibly important area. I think it's incredibly well run, but I also know that 82% of our budget is personnel. And so if people are really concerned about how we're spending our money, they need to look beyond operations. So I'm not sure. I also really, that is an area that is clearly delegated to staff. and we're really there, you know, the superintendent committees are us there for information versus our work, and I think it's important to keep that as an administrative superintendent-appointed committee. We need an OSBA legislative liaison and delegate. It's really two different things. We need an alternate for that. Is there anyone willing to serve in that role?
Don't all jump
I
at
will.
once.
Mr. Bennington
I will.
is willing to serve as that alternate. Thank you. We will fill that into 5.5. Are there other work sessions? So we have 5.3, 5.4, 5.5, and 5.6. Any other discussion or changes to those?
5, 3, 5, 4. Were we going to, there's been some discussion about changing the time for work sessions. So is that something that we can go ahead and approve this as is and maybe bring that up at the retreat then? Since we won't have had any work sessions yet, and we can discuss more thoroughly if we want to keep that 7 a.m. time or go to a different time.
I mean, we can certainly consider that and change it.
Okay.
As of right now, yeah, I think we need to approve as is and not try to
Okay.
coordinate 7 schedules right now if we wanted to try to change that. Yeah, I can put that down as a discussion point at the retreat on the 2nd. All right, if there's no other discussion, comments, we're,
What about, Ms. Minky pointed out, the April 18th Finance Committee, that's
Good Friday.
Good Friday. Are we in, is that a
school is
problem?
not in session that day, but I don't know what.
It doesn't make me any difference, but
Is it
Do we want to change it?
I'm asking the question. Ms. Minky brought it up. I just want to make sure that,
Okay. Do we want a different date then for the April meeting, or?
I would say do the 17th. Because if staff is off, I don't want to ask them to come in for a meeting.
my
that
staff's
morning.
not off.
Your staff isn't off.
We don't follow the school calendar.
I think that's then to Mr. Bennington, Ms.
Because
Menke.
we-
17th is fine with me.
They've got payroll and stuff that, like, they schedule their non-work days separately, differently. But it, you know, doesn't, whatever works.
Would it be bad to, or would it be difficult to do the 17th?
Not for me, no. Doesn't make any difference. I don't, to me, I'm gonna be, both of them are work days for me, so.
Mr. Bennington, the 17th of April, so Thursday, the 17th, instead of Friday, the 18th.
I'm a CPA, it's 2 days after tax day, so anytime after April 15th is good with me.
You'll be awake?
17th is
Okay.
fine, yeah. Give me a day rest, and then we'll get back into finance.
All right, so we will
You
change.
file those extensions and you can just goof off.
Yeah, thanks for that.
All right, so in 5.4, under Finance Committee, we have a change to Thursday, April 17th of 2025. Thanks for picking up on that. Are there other? Okay, then I'm going to move to 5.7, where we approve these 5 items together. And if Mr. Juror is ready, we can do a roll call.
Did we get a motion and a second? Did I miss that?
Sorry. Motion to approve all 5 items?
So moved?
Second.
Second, Ms. Larimer. Thank you. Roll call.
Mr. Bennington,
Yes.
Ms. Larimer,
Yes.
Ms. Minky,
Yes.
Dr. Reffert,
Yes.
Ms. Roland Miller.
Yes, I'll get the rhythm down, I promise. All right, we have consent
By
agenda
about your 3rd year, you'll get it.
by my 3rd year,
You-
and then I'll
You'll be
still
smooth
not get
as
nominations.
silk.
So consent agenda, item 7, there are multiple items here. For the consent agenda, I'd like to treat this as a consent agenda. If there's one specific one someone wants to pull out to discuss, we can. But otherwise, I would look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved?
Second.
Any discussion? Anyone want to pull an item?
Just a question, who's going to be in charge of 7-8?
Mr. Drewer, I'll.
What's that?
Card.
Who's going to be in charge then of 7.8?
I've not decided.
Okay.
Okay. And I'll just highlight 7.9. I want to thank Chris Campbell for continuing to serve.
To answer your question, no, sorry, I'm still in charge of 7.8. I'll have to appoint a compliance officer who I don't know who that will be at this point. But ultimately, it's still, credit limits fall on this role. At least the board is, if they approve this, it falls on this role,
Okay.
okay?
Just 7.9, Chris Campbell for the Pentic Career Board of Education. Grateful for his service in that. All right, we have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, I'll call for roll call.
Did I miss I'm sorry.
It was Eric and
Eric,
Lori.
Mr. Bennington, Ms. Larimer.
Okay, all right, got it now, sorry.
We get it.
All right, Mr. Bennington,
Yes.
Ms. Larimer,
Yes.
Ms. Menke,
Yes.
Dr. Reffert,
Yes.
Ms. Roland Miller.
Yes. And we've hit the end of the agenda, so I call for the adjournment of this meeting,
So move?
which moves us, if I can hit the right things, immediately into our special meeting. So I call to order the special meeting of the Perrysburg Board of Education.
What's that?
Do we need to take a vote on the adjournment?
Well,
Personnel meeting?
problem is we have a motion for adjournment. The president can say if there's no objection, adjourn the meeting.
I'm sorry, yeah, there's no objections to that, right?
None.
Okay, yeah, no, meeting's adjourned.
The issue is, once you get a motion in a second, then we have to act on it.
Okay.
I would hate to have the Roberts Rules police come after me.
You're a nasty bunch. I'm going to call to order the special meeting. Roll call, Mr. Drewer.
Ms. Larimer,
Here.
Mr. Bennington,
I'm still here.
Ms. Menke,
Here.
Dr. Reffert, Ms. Roland Miller.
Here. We have adopted the proposed agenda, again, to remind you that we are limited to the items that were on the agenda for the special meeting, primarily around the permanent improvement levy. You'll see that we also have an executive session for the purpose of the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee as well. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So move?
Second, Ms. Larimer.
Yeah, that didn't come out all the way.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Menke,
Yes.
Ms. Larimer,
Yes.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes.
Dr. Reffert.
Yes.
Ms. Roland Miller.
Yes. So item 3.1, discussion of options for the expiring 2019 permanent improvement levy.
And I have just a very short presentation to tee this up. So just want to kind of, it's kind of a repeat, but hopefully a reminder of what we have. So I thought Thomas had it up there.
You blinked and you missed it.
So, back in December, the board, asked me to get some language together for resolutions of necessity. And so I want to kind of just walk through a couple things that get us to this point, and then what we have to do.
Sorry, Randy.
And there's only 8 slides, so this is, okay. All right, Tom, we can go to the next slide. All right, so just a review. The election day is May 6th. Filing deadline is February 5th. There are two key steps for the board. Resolution of necessity, that outlines our ask, okay? And then it requests the county auditor to calculate the needed millage. The resolution of necessity does not obligate the district to do anything at that point. Essentially, it does is allow us to have the exact numbers that would be in some ballot language. Following that, then, if the board would pass a resolution to proceed, and that defines the ballot language that we submit to the Board of Elections, and that resolution also says, hey, Randy, go ahead and file that paperwork. So those are the two key steps that have to happen before February 5th, because that's what you actually file on the 5th.
So both of those steps have to happen.
Both those steps have to happen. And covering the resolution necessity tonight gives me time to work with the county auditor to have the numbers for the regular meeting, to have the resolution to proceed. Go ahead, Tom. So our current PI levy, it's an emergency fixed sum levy. It's 5-year levy, was last renewed in 2019, and Tom, correct me, it's been renewed every 5 years since 1980 or something?
Yes, correct.
It's a qualified levy, which means that it is homestead and rollback eligible. So, let me define that a little bit more. Gross collection in fiscal year 24 is $1.7 million. 1.5 of it comes from local property taxes, 76,000 from public utility, and then this is where the homestead and rollback eligible come important. 175,000, so about 10% came from state share. So the taxpayers in this case are getting about it, not everyone, I mean over 65 in particular, they qualify, there's about a 10% discount. So 90% of that is coming from, obviously local sources, and the state is putting in 10%. All right, so that's important to think about as we talk about how to replace or renew this levy. In 23, last tax year, the effective millage rate for class 1 was 1.17 mils. It was voted at 1.9. So those numbers keep in mind. So the effective millage has dropped over the 5 years, and it's actually in this tax year, it will be less than that. I just don't have the official number yet. So it probably about 1.1 or a little bit less for the actual effective millage. So go ahead, Tom. So there are 3 general options with, other than not renewing it, right? That is an option. You could just let it go away. You can replace a levy, and you can renew it with an increase, and you can do a straight renewal. And I put them in this order, as you'll see, for a reason. So go ahead, Tom. A replacement levy allows you to turn the clock back. We're going to replace this levy at the original millage, at 1.9 mils. Right, so it's collecting 1.17 the last tax year. We can replace it at 1.9, because that's what was originally passed, but it would no longer qualify for the homestead and rollback discounts. All right. A renewal with an increase, the renewed portion would still qualify, so that 1.17 or that current would still qualify for discount, but any increase would not. So what we did was put language there to increase. We know we need more money in the PI levy, but whether or not this is the time to ask for it or not, that's the question the board's going to have to deal with. But just for point of reference, a $500,000 increase is about 0.34 mils at this point, or a little bit less. Okay, so you actually have, so one of the languages you have is a resolution of necessity with this scenario here. So the bulk of it would be still qualify for discounts, but the new portion would not. Does that make sense? Be very clear. Then go to the last slide, Tom. And then obviously straight renewal, it remains qualified, and there's no additional revenue. So that's the simplest. And again, we don't know what the exact millage will be, but it's going to be somewhere less than 1.17 for a class 1, that's residential agricultural. And I think that kind of summarizes, I think the discussions, and hopefully narrows it down for what the board wants to do. I have put 2 resolutions on the agenda: one, a straight renewal, and a renewal with an increase. You can pass one or the other, or pass both of them. It doesn't obligate the district anything at this point. If you want to entertain an increase, If you don't want to entertain an increase, that's fine, we'll do the resolution just for the renewal. So the board has both those options right now in front of them. Replacement didn't feel like it was worth bringing in front of the board. It was just a hill too high to climb at this point.
Loss of homestead and rollback is
And once you replace it, there's no going back. It's no longer a qualified levy.
Yeah, we're not interested in that.
Well, if my arithmetic was correct, yeah, that was something that concerned me, that it would lose the homestead. But if you do the renewal plus, it came up to 1.51, which is still less than the replacement, but getting some much-needed dollars, correct, for, I mean, am I doing the arithmetic correct?
That's approximately right. It's not going to be, we don't know where the effective millage will end up until I give it to the county auditor. But we know the 1.17 is probably high, right? But that's based on the last year's valuations, depending where we ended up. So, but you're right, Sue, that's approximately where it would be, 1.51 mils, and 3.34 would not qualify for the discounts. So taxpayers would cover that. So what happens today is that the other portion of it, they see the 1.17 mils, and then the discount is rolled off. So it's actually, the effective millage is actually less, but taxpayer really doesn't see it because it's taxed and then they discount it, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
So I just want to, if no one wants to discuss letting this PI levy go away eternally, and no one wants to discuss replacement, okay, then we have renewal with increase versus renewal. I think renewal seems a little more straightforward, so let's continue on with the discussion about renewal with increase. Any, clarifying questions, or let's at least start talking about so what I hear is that we don't really have to decide between these two tonight. If we do decide, then we only have to submit one, so let's find out where we are in terms of, are we ready to make this decision? Do we want to wait until January and at least getting the ball rolling on both? Or do we have strong feelings one way or the other? So more discussion about the renewal with increase?
I think I would, because we don't have to go with it if you get the information, I think it would be beneficial to see both scenarios for the, for the giving it to the auditor or whoever you give it to about the taxes, to see what that actual is going to cost either way. If that's something that we can do so we can, have more information about which one would be, obvious, would be more beneficial. Just to have that, I think, so we can compare. I mean, that's my personal thoughts.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm not ready to make a decision tonight for the sake of discussion, just so that this table and the community knows where I'm at. I mean, I'm probably leaning much heavier towards a straight renewal for several reasons. There's a campaign that needs to happen. There's messaging that needs to occur, and I'm of the mindset that the simpler, the better. But that being said, I hear what Ms. Larimer says about the much-needed, additional funds of $500,000. I find that, I accept that too. We all know that. So I don't want to rule out a renewal with increase tonight if I don't have to. So I'd also be in favor of moving forward with both resolutions of necessity with continued discussion tonight and at the regular board meeting in January.
So, but that January meeting, though, we would have to make a decision that night because it's due the 5th.
Unless we wanted to get together.
Unless we want to do it again.
I guess we do have the retreat too, that we could take an action there, but I'd rather not. I'd rather not be doing that
I
in
didn't know
a.
we could make votes during retreat.
If they're on the agenda, we could, but again, I don't think that would be wise.
I would say that we should go for both, just to look at the amounts and let the public look at it. I also think that definitely before the next meeting, I think we need to get together, and I think we need to talk about an operating levy also. I think that needs to go on the May ballot. I know that's difficult, and and generally, I know we don't like to go with two on at the same time, but I think waiting is a mistake on our part.
Could you explain that?
Well, I'd probably caution, this is a special meeting with a specific agenda. I'm open to another special meeting if we want to talk about timing of an operating levy, but that, tonight is not the night for that.
Okay.
Yeah, before us, we just have the two resolutions to approve right now. So I'm hearing pretty much everyone that we want to move both resolutions. Is that the next step, Mr. Drewer?
So,
Do we need to do them individually?
I think we can combine them.
Okay. So I'd like a motion to approve 4.1 and 4.2 resolutions.
So moved?
Second.
Mr. Bennington, Ms. Larimer. Any other discussion? Roll call, Mr. Drewer.
Mr. Bennington,
Yes.
Ms. Larimer,
Yes.
Ms. Menke,
Yes.
Dr. Reffert,
Yes.
Ms. Rowland Miller.
Yes.
And if there's anything else, if you think you need for those discussions after we get the numbers from the auditor, let me know. I can, put some other things together and in terms of, what it's being used for example.
Yeah, I think one of the questions I have right now is how much, say, over the last 3 years, we've spent out of operating funds for things that could have come from permanent improvements. So how much are we spending out of our now limited operating funds for permanent improvement
Yeah.
costs?
I can figure out what that is, but this is really the first year since I've been here that we've spent significant money out of general fund that would have come out of, would have been PI. We've had some stuff, mainly repairs this past summer, and that's why some of our expenses on supplies and purchase services are up.
And these are like critical things that happen, that
Yeah.
you might,
Right.
I don't remember the specifics either, but I
Yeah,
mean,
weird
was it
electrical
boilers?
things especially.
But and of course, the other thing is just, like, for example, the boiler, the lease purchase on the boilers at the high school, it'd be nice to do that out of PI. It's doing partially out of PI, but it's also out of general fund, because there's not enough money in the PI to do that, right? This building's project, you got the Commodore Fund that can support it, but for the rest of the district, it's got to come between PI and operating.
I think it's important too to, just for context for people that are tuning in, there are 3 different types of levies that school districts can put before voters. So one is an operational levy. An operational levy they raise funds that can be used to operate the district, to pay staff, to, initiate programs, buy the fuel, all the kinds of things to keep the lights on and people in the classrooms. A permanent improvement levy is different. A permanent improvement levy is the second of 3 different types of options. And what that means is that we raise funds specifically for what the state of Ohio considers to be permanent things. And those are things that last longer than 5 years. So think about parking lots, roofs, boilers, some of the things that were mentioned, in terms of maintenance, hardware. We can't spend those dollars from permanent improvement levies on people. So the funds that are raised for this are specifically for those, repairs and maintaining buildings that were built in the 1950s, or in this case, a building in 1931. And then the third type of levy are bond issues. And bond issues, again, are dollars that can only be used for capital, so improvements, renovations, new buildings. Those funds also cannot be used for programming or people. So as we talk about the permanent improvement levy, it's important to know that this isn't going towards, people. We're not allowed to do that. So this is going towards maintaining our buildings. And what Randy was talking about is, as our buildings are aging, the amount of money that we're generating from the PI isn't enough to cover those expenses. So we start to dip into the general fund, which is used to keep the lights on, to pay staff. So if the levy were to fail, then we would be looking at, where does that $1.7 million come from that we're using now to do the windows and roofs and tuck pointing and all the kinds of things that happen. So while this isn't about people per se, if the money isn't available to the district, it becomes about people, because now those funds aren't available and we're still gonna have roofs that need to be repaired and those kinds of things. So just to give a little bit of context in terms of the different kinds of levies and what this is for.
I'd also point out that one of the things that we don't use it for, but in many places, PI levy is used to purchase textbooks. But as we've gotten away from hardcover textbooks, that burden for subscriptions and, curriculums coming out of general fund that would historically been used PI money for, because the textbooks normally have more than a 5-year life. But, those days are gone.
Huh, that's interesting.
1980, I guess. Definitely when we first approved
Yeah,
this.
I hadn't really put that together.
Yeah. All right, we have a motion to approve the 2 resolutions. Any other discussion? Mr. Drewer, roll call, please.
I thought we already voted.
Did we vote?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
And why were we still talking
because
about it?
you went out of order and opened up more conversation about it. I wasn't going to correct you.
Randy brought something up.
I was going to tell you that later.
All right, it's time for executive session.
So you can say that it looks like a good time to go into executive
So we're going to be
session?
moving into executive session for the purpose of investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee. I do not, there will be no motions or business following that meeting, and we will adjourn the meeting after that executive session.
Thank you.
You are into executive session?
No, you need a
No?
motion.
I need a
Motion
motion to
and a
do that?
Yeah.
So move.
Motion, thank you.
Second. You'll get it. It's a learning experience.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Minke,
Yes.
Dr. Reffert,
Yes.
Mr. Bennington,
Yes.
Ms. Larimer, Ms. Roland Miller.
Yes. And now we're going to move into executive
Now we go to
session. She
executive
says there's
session.
absolutely no confidence whatsoever.